Hello and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Judith. Today we're going to do an old English traditional dish. Steak and kidney pie. So we're going to start with a hot pan. I have it on a low medium. Add some oil in there. And I have some cubed stew beef. And you want it about 1-inch square cubes. You don't want it too small or it will disintegrate in your stew. I'm going to dredge the meat in some flour, which I've seasoned with salt and pepper. And then we're going to brown it a little bit at a time because you don't want to crowd the pan or you'll just be stewing it already. And we want to seal in the juices so it's nice and tender when it's done. Alright, while our beef is browning in the pan, we're going to clean up the kidney. Now this is one beef kidney. And you notice there's a big line of fat there. And that is where all the connections happen. And we need to cut that out. So first I'm going to just rinse it off a little. Pat it dry a bit. There we go. Now, so we want to cut the kidney away from its connection. And you don't have to be too fancy about this, just chunks is fine. I know it comes with the beautiful pre-marked areas, but you don't even have to pay attention to those. You just want to cut as much of the connective tissue or fat away as you can. Now see, this is the kind of thing you want to get rid of. This stringy looking bit here. Dexter. You may hear the cat crying in occasional videos. He has no self. Alright, we're taking the last of our beef out of the pan and putting it in our pot. Our next step is the kidneys. We did clean them up while we were browning the beef. So I'm going to add some oil here. And it's pretty much the same procedure as the beef. We're going to coat them in the seasoned flour. And put them in the pan to brown. And again, you don't want to crowd the pan. So you will, depending on the size of your kidney, be doing it in batches. There, okay. Kidneys do have a distinctive smell and taste. I happen to like the taste. The smell, especially when they're raw, is not that pleasant. But once they're cooked and cooked in with the stew, it's actually quite nice. Very, I don't know, deep and earthy. So once your kidneys are browned, we're doing the same. We're taking them out and we're putting them in the pan, or the pot, with the stew beef. And I know it's called steak and kidney pie, but rarely does anyone use actual steak in it these days. It's just too expensive. And like I said, we're doing this in batches, so here goes the next batch. A little more oil. Alright, now that we've got all the kidneys browned and they're all in the pot with the stew meat, we are not finished with this pan. We're going to set it aside. We are going to use it later. And we want all that yummy goodness in the bottom. We've got everything in there. I'm going to take this pan, put it off to the side, bring that one over. This is our pot full of beef and kidney, and we're going to add 3 bay leaves, hot water, just to cover. I mean, we don't want to go overboard with the water, because otherwise we're going to end up with either a very thin gravy or way too much gravy. So there we go. And we got that in there. I'm going to get the heat up and bring it to a simmer. Okay, now that it's come up to a simmer, we're reducing the heat and putting the lid on. And we're going to let the beef tenderize, which is what a nice long simmer will do. Now that our pot of meat has been simmering for about half an hour, we are going to start with some vegetables. And this is why we reserved our pan that had all the meat bits in it. We're going to use that. So I have 1 large yellow onion, 3 ribs of celery. Now the onion is wedged. The celery is fairly coarsely chopped. If you want it finer, feel free to chop it the way you like it, but I like mine kind of rustic. And carrot. So now we're going to brown that. Once we get it all nice, caramelized and lovely, we are going to deglaze the pan with some red wine. Now I know most recipes call for stout or beer, but I much prefer red wine in this. And it's up to you. Use whichever you like best. Alright, now that our vegetables are looking lovely, the onions are all softened, we're going to take them and put them in our pot with our meat. Let's move the meat over here. They're still simmering, they're lovely, wonderful. Now we're going to put this back on the heat. We'll actually turn it down a bit. Back on that pan. Now a lot of people at this point would put in some peas. And I do have a lovely bowl of English peas that I shelled earlier. But because peas break down and they tend to overtake the flavor, their flavor is quite strong, I like to serve them on the side. So I will steam those and serve them on the side. So now what we're going to do here is deglaze this pan with some red wine. And if you want to stick to tradition, you would be using stout or beer. And just scrape all the bits up off the bottom. Our pot full of meat and vegetables is looking wonderful. Unfortunately, at this point, it is looking rather thick. The gravy is becoming gravy, and we need our vegetables to cook a bit more. So we need a little bit more water in there. And that's okay, because we have our other pan that we've deglazed with the red wine, and we can turn that into a slurry to put in here to thicken the gravy, if needed later. Okay, once your carrots are getting to be sufficiently softened, and now that we've thinned our gravy, we're going to want to thicken it a bit. So we have our red wine mixture here, and we're going to thicken it with just the flour slurry. And we don't want it really hot. Not to start with, because it'll lump. You know, if you cook the flour before it blends in, you're going to end up with something you're going to have to strain through a sieve to get a nice smooth gravy. So we're doing this on a low heat. And then we're going to leave it to cook a little bit to thicken. Steak and kidney pie is traditionally done with a shortcut crust pastry on top. But we're going to do it 3 ways. Short crust, puff pastry, and mashed potatoes. Nice gravy underneath. They are nothing better than mashed potatoes and gravy. So we're going to do a little bit of flour on our board here. Puff pastry out. And this is going to be for 2 of them, so we're going to cut it in half. Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh dear. Oh dear. So if it sticks, just throw a little more flour in there and peel it away. There we go. There's number 2. And for our final 2, we're going to do the actual short crust pastry. A disc, and then start. Okay, now we're going to cut it down a little bit. More of a circular shape, sort of. And get it on our dish. And again, we don't have to be too careful about how it fits. Just rustic and maybe poke a few holes in it. As well as poking some holes in your puff pastry. Okay, take that one aside. Okay, so we have our oven preheating to 375, and we are going to bake our lovely pies until everything's lovely and golden. And then we have a choice of puff pastry, short crust pastry, and mashed potato. Alright, there we have our steak and kidney pies with 3 different toppings. We do have some lovely English peas that I shelled earlier that will go on the side. And what a wonderful dinner. If you liked the video, if you enjoyed the recipe, give me a like, consider subscribing, and I thank everyone so much that has already subscribed. It does help me a lot. We'll see you again soon with another recipe. Thank you so much.